Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in on this Wednesday. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. The U.S. Supreme Court handed President Trump a win as they lifted a lower court's order that paused the Pentagon's transgender military ban from taking effect. We have all the details on that ruling. Columbia University announced 180 layoffs, and they're blaming the Trump administration for canceling $400 million in federal grants over anti-Semitism concerns. We have those details as well. President Trump declared New York Attorney General Letitia James a total crook yesterday and said the Justice Department will do what's right after receiving a criminal referral accusing her of mortgage fraud. And state legislators in South Carolina have reached an agreement on liquor liability reform. Lawmakers say the compromise is aimed at helping bars and restaurants. We have the details on what appears to be going to Governor McMaster's desk.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
The Supreme Court yesterday sided with the Trump administration in lifting a lower court order that paused the Pentagon's transgender military ban from taking effect. This, of course, allowing Trump's order and related policies to proceed, at least for now. The high court ruling is a near-term victory for the White House, even as it did not address the underlying merits of the case or President Trump's January 27th executive order banning transgender service members from the U.S. military. Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Alana Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson would have denied the administration's appeal and kept the lower court's injunction in place. At issue is the suit involving Schilling versus the United States, and it's Trump's executive order banning transgender military members. It's real simple. The executive order would require the Defense Department to update its guidance regarding trans-identifying medical standards for military service and to rescind guidance inconsistent with military readiness. The Trump administration has argued that further stalling the policy could impose a threat to U.S. military readiness and concerns that it outlined to the Supreme Court in a filing late last month. U.S. Solicitor General John Sawyer told the court, urging justices to grant a stay, saying, quote, absent a stay, the district court's universal injunction will remain in place for the duration of further review in the Ninth Circuit and in this court, a period far too long for the military to be forced to maintain a policy that it has determined, in its professional judgment, to be contrary to military readiness and the nation's interests. Now, Trump officials have argued that the transgender military policy furthers the government's important interest in military readiness, unit cohesion, good order and discipline, and avoiding disproportionate cost. The case was, of course, immediately challenged in federal court. 7 transgender military members brought suit against the administration in the Seattle-based federal court and in Washington, D.C., where U.S. District Judge Anna Myers grilled lawyers for the Trump administration in a line of questioning that invoked shelters, Jesus, and Miss Pac-Man. I'm not quite sure what any of these have to do with transgenders serving in the military. Before asking the government to push its planned implementation deadline, the judge had some very unusual questions. That decision was later overturned by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, in the Seattle case, plaintiffs argued that the executive order turns away transgender military members and kicks them out for no legitimate reason. Well, I would say that military readiness is a legitimate reason. The order said rather, or the complaint said rather, it baselessly declares all transgender people unfit to serve, insults and demeans them, and cruelly describes every one of them as incapable of an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life, based solely because they are transgender. U.S. District Judge Benjamin Settle issued a preliminary injunction back in March that blocked the administration from identifying and removing transgender service members as the suit worked its way through the lower courts. This is another one of those cases where a federal district judge issued this stay that affected this nationwide. Now, in his opinion, granting the injunction, Judge Settle characterized the ban as a blanket prohibition on transgender service. The judge found the plaintiffs would likely succeed on the merits of their equal protection, First Amendment, and procedural due process claims. He wrote, the government's arguments are not persuasive and is not an especially close question on this record. Judge Settle wrote in his order that the injunction was to maintain the status quo of military policy regarding both active duty and prospective transgender service that were in place prior to Trump's January 27th executive order. Now, the administration quickly appealed the order to the Ninth Circuit, requesting the appellate court stay Settle's order. The administration argued in court filings that the policy furthers the government's important interest in military readiness, unit cohesion, and good order and discipline. The three-judge panel, composed of Judges Wallace Tashima, a Clinton appointee, John B. Owens, an Obama appointee, and Rupali Desai, a Biden appointee, denied the administration's request for a stay on March 31st, which was overturned by the Supreme Court yesterday. Again, I keep coming back to how much is this costing us to keep this going in a federal court. The Justice Department said the Department of Justice has vigorously defended President Trump's executive actions, including prioritizing military excellence and readiness executive order, and will continue to do so. Schilling versus United States is just one of a number of suits challenging the administration's military ban. It comes as Trump has used his first 100 days in office to undo major Biden-era policies, including their efforts to promote a diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, agenda in all areas of the government, including military. I don't know about you, but I, for one, I want to make sure that everyone serving in our military is ready to fight for our country, is ready to be called into action at any time. And the distractions of having people who are confused about their identity, I don't think allows us to be militarily ready. We'll see. We'll see where this heads. Columbia University confirmed yesterday that it will lay off about 180 staff members, and they're citing a loss of federal funding following Trump's decision to revoke $400 million in research grants over the school's failure to adequately address anti-Semitic harassment on campus. They're saying that these 180 staff members are losing their jobs because of Trump. Acting University President Claire Shipman said in the statement that determinations will affect about 20% of those whose salaries were tied to the rescinded federal grants. The impacted employees will receive notices of non-renewal or termination, the president said. The Trump administration announced back in March that multiple agencies, including the Department of Justice, Health and Human Services, Education, and the General Services Administration, had pulled funding due to what they described as Columbia's continued inaction in face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. It's been in the headlines ever since, as Columbia initially pushed back. In response, Columbia in April took a series of corrective steps trying to comply with federal expectations. They have banned the wearing of masks for the purpose of concealing identity during campus protests. They have empowered campus police to arrest students under expanded authority. And they appointed a new senior vice provost to oversee sensitive academic departments, including Middle East and Palestine studies, which federal officials accused of failing to prevent or respond to anti-Semitic incidents. Despite those actions, funding has not yet been reinstated. Trump's going to let them sit it out. He's going to let them sweat it out. President Shipman said discussions with the federal government ongoing, but warned of uncertainty related to future levels of federal funding. Look, you should have thought about this prior to allowing these students to just do whatever they want on campus. Where are the adults in the room? Are you ready for this? I dropped over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan. No Ozempic, no shots, no meds. Look, I refuse to rely on prescriptions for life, and you probably feel the same. Joey Hudson here. Here's what Big Pharma won't tell you. Your body already makes GLP-1. That's the hormone that fights hunger. PhD helps your body produce it naturally, faster, and without side effects. With PhD, there's no muscle loss, no rebound weight gain, and no cravings. Just real, lasting weight loss the natural way. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. It takes 5 minutes and shows what's really happening inside your body. You'll walk out knowing how to flip your fat-burning switch. No shots needed. Don't trade your health for a quick fix. You can do this without Big Pharma and without the drugs. Plus 15% off when you fully commit to your program and the PhD Get Results Guarantee. Call now 864-644-1900. Start today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. I asked you yesterday what you thought about Marjorie Taylor Greene running for the U.S. Senate in Georgia as Governor Brian Kemp announced that he would not be a candidate. He had been the favored candidate. The GOP Senate committee had hoped that he would run because they felt like he had a good shot at knocking off Jon Ossoff. Well, he announced he would not, which is apparently or appears to be paving the way for Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I ask you, what you thought about her being the candidate? Well, based on the emails and the text messages I received, you're not too fond of the idea of Marjorie Taylor Greene running for the U.S. Senate. For example, Pete wrote, Joey, in regards to Marjorie Taylor Greene running for the Senate seat, in the immortal words of Charles Bronson, no dice. Greene is lucky to have a rep seat with her space lasers and crazy antics. Oh, and she just made a nice stock purchase. And he included a link in Snopes that confirms that she did, in fact, invest. He said, the least she could have done is told her constituents to buy. Tony says, Joey, personally, I hope MTG doesn't run for Senate. A lot of people look at her as too extreme, and in order to win, we got to get moderates to show up to vote in order to win, and I don't think she'll get those votes. These were a couple of many texts and emails that I received from you, and it appears our little unscientific poll here, you're not in favor of Marjorie Taylor Greene of running. So who's it going to be? Love to hear from some of my Georgia listeners. Who's next? If it's not Governor Kemp, because he's taking himself out. If you don't think that Marjorie Taylor Greene is the right candidate, who is the right candidate? Because we need to take Jon Ossoff out of the U.S. Senate. He needs to be retired. Bring him back to Georgia. President Trump yesterday declared New York Attorney General Letitia James as a total crook and said that the Justice Department would do what's right after receiving a criminal referral accusing her of mortgage fraud. Here's the story. Trump weighed in on the scandal during an Oval Office appearance moments after U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi had told reporters, we don't discuss anything pending or not within my office when asked about the April 14th referral against James from Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte. Now, although the Attorney General didn't want to comment on it, the President did follow up by saying, I can say unrelated to that, she's a disaster for New York. She's a horrible, horrible human being, and I think she's a total crook. There's no question about it, but that's just my opinion, the President said. He said, Pam's going to have to do what she wants. She's a very bad person. She's a very, very bad person. A very bad person who campaigned solely on, I'm going to get Donald Trump over and over again. I think the president thinks she's a bad person, don't you? A spokesman for Ms. James, who has denied wrongdoing in this case, said that the Attorney General will not respond to personal attacks. The spokesperson said, A.G. James is focused every single day on protecting New Yorkers and upholding the law, not personal attacks, no matter who they come from. That's an interesting change in the way she operates, isn't it? Because she's always been very quick to comment on Donald Trump and to go after Donald Trump. Even during the cases, she always had something to say about the Donald Trump case. Now, suddenly, she's not talking about cases. The Democrat last February won a $364 million judgment after accusing Trump of inflating the value of his assets, including to secure more favorable loan terms. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? As part of the judgment, Trump's sons, Eric and Donald Jr., were ordered to pay $4 million each. As of last month, the size of the penalty stopped $500 million due to the accrual of interest as Trump is appealing the case. The allegations against James also stem from details of financial documents. Pulte's criminal referral, addressed to Bondi, cites media reports about multiple instances in which the Attorney General allegedly falsified bank documents and property records to acquire government-backed assistance and loans and more favorable loan terms. Pulte wrote, this has potentially included, number one, falsifying residence status for a Norfolk, Virginia-based home in order to secure a lower mortgage interest rate. Number two, misrepresenting property descriptions to meet stringent requirements for government-backed loans and government assistance. In August of 2023, Ms. James allegedly said in documents that the Norfolk, Virginia home would be her primary residence, despite listing her home address as being in New York on other forms, and knowing that she's the New York Attorney General who has to live in New York. She has to be a resident of New York in order to hold that office. Mr. Pulte wrote, primary residence mortgages receive more favorable loan terms, including lower interest rates, than secondary residence mortgages. James also allegedly listed a 5-unit Brooklyn residence that she has owned since 2001 as having only 4 units, which allowed her to meet the eligibility requirement for a Fannie Mae Freddie Mac conforming loan that are subject to a cap of 4 dwellings per property. Now, the problem with that is, according to Mr. Pulte, a building that exceeds 4 units must be treated as a multifamily property and typically has larger down payment requirements and higher interest rates, with interest rates being between 0.75 and 1% higher, due to lenders viewing multifamily loans as significantly riskier. Well, the building that she listed as a 4-unit was actually a 5-unit building. You think she mistakenly listed that as a 4-unit building? Or do you think, as the documents would appear to suggest, that she knew it was a 5-unit building, but listed it as a 4 in order to get better rates? Ms. James's personal attorney, Abby Lowell, denied the allegations in their April 24th letter to Ms. Bondi, saying that there was a misunderstanding about both instances. So how could you have a misunderstanding on 2 separate applications like this that both appear to have been listed misrepresentations on both that favored Miss James? Are you buying it? You think that she just made mistakes on both of these? Or is it a pattern of her cheating, thinking that she's above the law, which she says no one is, and thinking no one's ever going to notice this? For example, listing her this Virginia home as her primary home. You think she thought that, well, nobody's ever going to check on this. They'll never know I listed this as my primary home, and I live in New York, actually. Lowell wrote that the Norfolk documents were not fraudulent because James's niece, Shamice Thompson Hairston, was to occupy that home, and that the document mistakenly stated the property to be Miss James' principal residence. Oh, yeah, another mistake. I'm not buying it. The attorney argued that James didn't lie about the Brooklyn property having 4 units rather than 5 because the property has functioned as a 4-unit residence for the past 24 years since Miss James bought it, and that its basement has been unoccupied. Well, we'll see. We will see. Personally, I think Letitia James really does think that the law does not apply to her. I think she does believe she's above the law. What do you think? Hey, here's something that's going to catch the attention of anyone out there working long hours and racking up overtime. Maybe that's you. Senators Roger Marshall from Kansas and Tommy Tuberville of Alabama rolled out a bill yesterday that could seriously boost your paycheck. Do I have your attention? They're calling it the Overtime Wages Tax Relief Act, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It would let you knock off up to $10,000 in overtime pay from your taxable income. For married couples, you're looking at $20,000 in deductions. That's not nothing, now, especially with everything costing more these days. That could really help your family budget, couldn't it? Now, there are income limits, so this isn't a blanket benefit for the super rich. If you're a single filer making over $100,000 or a couple making over $200,000, the deduction starts to phase out. Basically, it drops by $50 for every $1,000 you make above that limit. It's aimed squarely at the working class, the folks who are putting in those extra hours just to keep up. Senator Marshall was pretty fired up when he introduced it. He said this is one of President Trump's big promises from the 2024 campaign, no taxes on overtime. The president promised it. It looks like he's going to deliver. Again, Senator Tuberville chimed in saying he had a lot of folks back home in Alabama putting away more than 40 hours a week, and they shouldn't be punished with higher taxes for working harder. And he's right, isn't he? These are people trying to save for retirement, pay off college loans. Yeah, they're actually paying their college loans, and keep the house warm and food on the table. Why tax them more for doing what it takes? This is another example of President Trump doing what he promised. Former Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanova has created a name for himself as being someone who's outspoken. He grabbed headlines yesterday as he officially announced that he is switching his party registration from Democrat to Republican.
As of today, and if you have cameras, get them rolling. Share this on social media. As of today, I'm leaving the party of paid protests, purple hair, and pronouns. I'm joining the party of faith, family, and freedom.
The announcement was made at the United Inland Empire Conservative Conference. Villanova, who led the nation's largest sheriff's department between 2018 and 2022, cited his frustration with the Democrat Party's shift away from traditional values. As you heard him say, I'm leaving the party of paid protests, purple hair, and pronouns, and joining the party of faith, family, and freedom. Villanova, once elected with the support of progressives, gradually distanced himself from the Democrat mainstream during his time as sheriff, particularly on issues of crime, because that's what he was elected to do, was to wipe out crime and to fight crime. He is outspoken on homelessness and criminal justice reform. Unfortunately, he was defeated in 2022 by Robert Luna, the former Long Beach police chief, following a contentious term that included high-profile clashes with the L.A. County Board of Supervisors. And look, this guy, Villanova, was a common-sense, plain-spoken type of sheriff. You can see why the progressives in California, in Los Angeles County, wouldn't want him. Republican leaders in California praised the party switch. Corin Rankin is chairman of the California GOP. He posted a statement following the announcement saying, "I left the California Democrat Party when I saw it no longer stood for the values I was raised with: personal responsibility, public safety, and freedom." Alex Villanueva made the same call. "It takes courage, but it's the right move. Welcome to our movement to restore common sense." Roxanne Hogue, chair of the L.A. Republican Party, added, "The sheriff, you're not alone. Many classic liberals have noticed that California Democrats now champion crime and criminals. You don't need to be a Republican to vote for sanity, but it helps." Look, some of his critics say that the switch is long overdue, that he was showing his true colors before he even left the sheriff's office. Democrats, progressives, reacted with a little less enthusiasm. They argued that Villanueva had long since abandoned their values. Not a surprise. Hasn't been a Dem. Voted for him in 18, regretted it, and happily helped vote him out in 2022, posted podcaster Scott Moore. Moore went on to say, "At least we won't have to see him again in elected office now with the party switch." And he's probably right. If the former sheriff had any intentions of running for public office again, he probably just shot himself in the foot, because there are not many Republicans elected in California, certainly not in Los Angeles County. Strategist Michael Trujillo took a jab online, writing, "The Democrats have selected the Wu-Tang Clan. Republicans can have Villanueva." Now, Democrats maintain a wide registration, of course, in California. Republicans have seen a modest resurgence in recent months since Donald Trump has been back in the Oval Office. But look, you're not going to win much as a Republican in California anymore. In the 2024 cycle, 3 seats in the Democrat supermajority legislature flipped to the GOP, a development that state party leaders hope to build on heading into 2026 midterms. But look, if I were a Republican in California, I would not get my hopes up. Maybe they can do it. Maybe they can flip some more seats. But I can't imagine that there being a Republican groundswell of support in liberal, woke, left California, and particularly in Los Angeles County. That place is a mess. Political tensions are very high in the wake of the Pacific Palisades wildfire, which devastated communities, and it really intensified the scrutiny of local leadership. But now, whether or not they are so frustrated that they're ready to throw out someone like Mayor Karen Bass, which she's facing a growing recall effort tied to the city's emergency response and their homelessness crisis. But will they really oust Karen Bass? I don't think so. I think she'll play the race card, and she'll make those in Los Angeles who probably agree she should go, she'll play the race card and make them feel bad, make them feel guilty for turning out a black woman from the mayor's office. Meanwhile, the former sheriff, his party switch, again, in a more conservative district or in a nonpartisan race, he might have a chance, because his tough on crime messaging could appeal to independents, maybe some moderate Democrats who are disillusioned with the state's progressive shift. But look, I don't care what party you're in. If you're in Los Angeles and you see the crime rate as it is now, wouldn't you want somebody who's really going to hunt down criminals, lock them up, and hold them accountable, versus some of these Democrats out there now who are serving as prosecutors, who literally it's catch and release? Which would you rather have? You want your community to be safe or not? Whether or not Sheriff Villanueva returns to the ballot, he's made it clear that he intends to remain a political voice in California, just a Republican political voice. And I wish him well. I hope he does well. Maybe, look, I'm a little cynical, again, when it comes to how well Republicans can do in Los Angeles County, but maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe people are awakening there, and they're ready for a change. I hope so. I'd love to see it, wouldn't you? I just don't have a lot of hope that the state that is the home of former Vice President Kamala Harris is ready for that type of change. By the way, did you see some anonymous U.S. senators who, on the record, said that they don't think Kamala Harris is the right candidate for 2028? She's starting to kind of roll out her next campaign. Many suspect that she's going to forego the governor's race in California and run for president again. Some of the U.S. senators saying absolutely not. That's a story for tomorrow. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. State House negotiators reached a late session agreement on liquor liability insurance reform yesterday. Now, this is a topic that we've talked about quite a bit this year because we have businesses all around the state, primarily restaurants and neighborhood bars, that have literally been closing their doors because they can't afford their liability insurance. This package, this compromise, what happened? Of course, the Senate passed their version, which is a more broad fix for tort reform in general. The House had passed a version of a bill that was just focusing on liquor liability and the restaurant bar industry. This end of the session agreement between the State House and the Senate is a result of weeks of work between legislative leadership and a weeks-long stalemate over reforms and just what to do. This compromise comes several months after a show of force by State House Republicans in support of a sweeping tort reform bill to address issues in the state law where a defendant could be found 100% liable for damages in cases where they were only partially at fault. And that's what's been wrong with our system. You have, and I'll give you the example that I was given of a convenience store who had sold one alcoholic drink. It was like one of these lemonade cooler type drinks. Several hours later, this was like at 8 o'clock, several hours later, the person who had that drink and had been to other places was involved in an accident. The person who was driving wasn't even sued. They were left out of the suit. The convenience store, because they had high limits of insurance, they had deep pockets, the convenience store was sued by the plaintiff. And this is just it's not fair. So I hope this settles or will start the process of getting some relief for these. I'm not convinced that it totally will. I think the Senate's version was much broader, and it would have taken care of the situation much better than the House's version. But we'll see. Look, something is better than nothing, because had legislators not come up with something, we were going to be at a stalemate and right back. We would have seen more bars and restaurants close this year, and we still may. House lawmakers insisted in the closing days of this session that for Thursday at 5 o'clock, that they did not have time to consider a broader bill, insisting that they would only support legislation specific to liquor liability. Now, the Senate insisted on their version of the bill that addressed issues facing all industries, because it's not just restaurants and bars. Several times when I've been talking about the issue, and I've had someone on the show that was involved with a restaurant or maybe with a bar, I've gotten text messages and emails from truckers saying, don't forget about the truckers. Loggers, don't forget about us. But this is part of the process. This is how it works, I guess. The resulting agreement between the House and the Senate supposedly incorporates multiple facets of both bills, creating tailor-made joint and several liability reform language specific to bars and taverns. In return, the House agreed to discuss a broader tort reform bill in the 2026 session. We'll see. We're going to hold them to that. And they talk about we didn't have enough time. They've been talking about this since January, this session. It's actually been an issue for a couple of years now. Some of the main provisions of the agreement, according to the Post and Courier, who wrote an extensive column about it yesterday, drunk drivers' inclusion on the verdict forms jury considers would allow them to be sued for damages. So, like the example I just gave you of the convenience store being the only one sued, the driver wasn't, that wouldn't be allowed anymore. Bars and restaurants would be liable for up to 50% of a plaintiff's actual damages in drunk driving cases and would only pay damages commensurate with their percentage of fault, as it should be. Reduced insurance coverage requirements for venues where alcohol makes up less than 40% of sales. I'm not sure about that. You know, they made such a big deal out of the fact that, well, you won't be required to have $1 million limits. You can reduce that to, let's say, $500,000. Well, that just takes away coverage and opens them up for more damages. And I don't know that it's really going to reduce the cost of insurance. Again, that's a wait and see. Also, it would require training for bartenders and servers with reductions in required insurance coverage amounts for bars that comply. I don't know how they can tell an insurance company that they're going to reduce the rate if these servers are trained. I just don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't think they can, but it's in the bill. Mandated forensic digital age identification systems in bars and restaurants that are open after midnight. And language requiring a bartender or server who knowingly overserved an intoxicated individual to be held liable. The bill also includes broader reforms to the state's tort system that would apply to all industries, application of guilt in personal injury cases. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Weston Newton said the agreement was to ensure the state's bars and restaurants were not being held hostage any longer. Senator Michael Johnson told reporters he was optimistic the bill would result in immediate insurance relief for bars and restaurants should the legislation go into effect as planned January the 1st. That's still a long time for them to wait. And it could take, I believe, as someone who was in the insurance business for a long, long time, I don't think the insurance companies are going to immediately decrease their insurance rates just because the law has passed. They're going to wait and see if it actually does what it's supposed to do. They're going to wait and see that some of these lawsuits are handled more fairly. Senator Massey, the leading proponent of the Senate bill, supported the bill as well, but he had specific critiques. The House bill included carve-outs for certain individuals, including those who declared bankruptcy or those guilty of reckless negligence from being fully held liable. He expressed concerns with the mitigation efforts in the bill that would reduce the state's long $1 million minimum, a burden of proof requirement to include a party on a lawsuit. One of the groups that favored this was the South Carolina Manufacturers Alliance. Look, everybody has been at the table. There's been a lot of people interested in this bill, as they should have. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code JOEY. Order online at MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.